Welcome, everybody. This is the Southern California Water Dialogue. This is Connor Everett, your moderator, and we're just waiting a few minutes to reach critical mass and we'll get started. Again, this is the Southern California Water Dialogue. People are still joining us. We're just going to get started in a couple minutes. Okay. This is the Southern California Water Dialogue. I know people are still joining us, but I wanted to thank you all for coming. I'm Connor Everett, the co-chair with Dees Inc. I represent the Southern California Watershed Alliance and Dee, the Metropolitan Water District. She will not be with us today. She's busy. I imagine it's the end of the legislative session. So I will also be doing the questions at the end. Just to go through, first, I always want to thank Kathy Caldwell, who is our coordinator, who has done this for many years and managed to the transition onto Zoom. Hopefully someday we will be in person again. But I want to thank all the people who are on this list. And if anyone else wants to join us, you're always welcome. We also are always looking for new ideas for our monthly meetings, and you can contact any of us with suggestions and hopefully speakers as well. So we have some basic webinar rules. This is a Zoom, but it's a webinar. You can't see the other participants who are attendees who are on, but there are various things you probably have learned well from now. But if you have any technical difficulties, use the chat feature. We're using the question and answer for the ultimate questions. So use that and not the chat. They will be answered by the speakers the best we can. If you have a poor connection, move closer to your wireless router or turn off any other service that might be using up bandwidth. You all are muted until you're taken off. You're actually always muted. So we will relay your questions and ask them. You can also upvote them, and we'll talk about that in a second. The actual presentation portion will run approximately 60 minutes with the rest for our dialogue. Again, you know this, but yeah, click Q&A on the bottom right-hand corner. Type in your question, hit send, and as I mentioned, you can upvote, which will move a question up towards the top if you have an interest in doing that. So we can move on. All right, today we have two excellent speakers. I do have to announce Greg Gerhardt came down with an illness just today and won't be able to join us. But that doesn't stop us from having a great presentation because Nick Martano is the director of California Water Monitoring Council, at the State Water Resource Control Board, and he has learned well from his boss and water quality guru, Greg. So he'll actually give that presentation as well. And then we have Evelyn Wendell, the founder and director of WeTap, bringing quality drinking water through the water utilities pipes. This is a picture of her with Ben Allen, Senator Ben Allen and Senator Anthony Portino on the legislature floor on WeTap Day. So she'll do the second presentation and give the nonprofit perspective as well as a member of the California Monitoring Council. And with that, we'll take it away. Nick, please get started. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Connor. All right, sorry about that. So again, yeah, hi, thanks everybody. Thanks to Evelyn for inviting myself and Greg to speak today. Unfortunately, Greg did come down with an illness, but I'll be giving his presentation the best I can. Just some background on Greg. He's the Deputy Director of the Office of Information Management and Analysis, which is kind of the main office that controls and disseminates the data and information across the water boards. He refers to himself often as the Chief Data Liberator at the water boards. He's also my boss. I am Nick Martorano. My pronouns are he, him. I've been at the water boards for 17 and a half years now. I spent the first half or so working within the Division of Water Quality, doing various aspects of the regulatory work, from implementing and writing TMDLs to running the assessment program. And I've been in the Office of Information Management Analysis as the director for the California Water Quality Monitoring Council for the last 6 or 7 years now. And I'll be talking a little bit more about the council in the second part of this presentation. So why we came here today is Evelyn and I and Greg have been talking about open data and the struggles and opportunities there, and really how open water data makes for a better open government, and some of the goals that we have to try to implement that, some of the barriers, and just to talk about the importance of open water data. This presentation is going to talk a little about the history of the Open and Transparent Water Data Act, or AB 1755, and how the water boards specifically have been trying to create better outcomes using open water data. So a little bit about the water boards. You probably are aware of this, as many of you are regulated entities and NGOs. There are 10 water boards, 9 regional and 1 at the state water board. That's kind of the main headquarters. That's where I'm located and where the office is. There are 25 drinking water districts spread across California, and 68 government appointed board members, so 7 for each of the 9 water boards, and then 5 at the state water board. As you may or may not be aware, the state water board's main role is that it oversees water quality, water rights, drinking water, as well as funding and administrative duties for several grants that are managed through the water board. So a little bit of background about AB 1755. It was written in 2016 and passed by Senator Quirk, and it tasked the state water board, along with Department of Water Resources and the Department of Fish and Wildlife, to develop an integrated platform across existing water and ecological data, and make water-related data tools and applications that are developed using state funds publicly accessible, and really try to develop a set of standards to promote openness and interoperability of data. And interoperability means that our data can speak to each other. So the data that we're collecting at the water boards could be integrated with data that's collected at DWR or the water resources, as well as what's collected by other state agencies. Along the heels of that, the State Water Resources Control Board adopted its own resolution, Resolution 2018-0032, which laid out a more detailed groundwork for adopting principles of open data as a core value within the water boards itself, especially across its programs and activities as it implements strategic actions. So that really was laid the groundwork that said this was important to our board and that we really need to make our data accessible and open first for all of our critical programs, and that we need to better educate our staff and programs about water data quality and integrity, and that we are making sure that we are making decisions with data of known and acceptable quality, and that we are employing practices that protect that integrity of the data that we are collecting and required to be collecting. A little bit about open water data history in the U.S. Back in the 40s and 50s, open science and data was first kind of developed and really built on the idea that scientific research should be available to all, not just scientists talking to scientists. The term open data really first came on board in 1995, and that was in relation to a global environmental data to help with modeling and researching and work together. It was really on the heels of the internet boom or the beginnings of the internet, and really just saying that we need to, as the internet's coming on board, we need to make the data that we are collecting at our institutions and within our science communities to be available to each other, so that we're not working in silos but working together on these larger topics. Think climate change and other environmental issues, but even beyond that. In 2007, the Sunlight Foundation wrote a paper on open data for open government. That's a great document that you should check out if you haven't already. And then in 2009, Obama administration signed an MOU on transparency and open government, and was then issued as an executive order in 2013. So how do we unlock the data? That's kind of the first big step. We want to improve our data flows and build upon our internal infrastructure, and really, like I said, educate our own internal staff on data literacy. And that really means like understanding what data is, what data quality is, and just bringing people up to speed from just understanding what data actually is and how to make it open. This is what we often refer to internally as the tuna can diagram. And this is just like a small snapshot. Every tuna can represents its own individual data system. As you can see, it's quite a complex mess, for a lack of a better word. But there are so many different little tiny data sets throughout the water boards and the programs that we do. And somehow we have to try to make sense of it all so that we can ultimately deliver information to our board so that they can make decisions. And so the challenge is, how do we take all of these enterprise applications and systems and make them coordinated effectively? And as you can imagine, it's difficult, especially because a lot of these data systems are antiquated and have been developed either on maybe in some cases people's desktops, or they're housed in specific programs. Some are within our Division of Information Technology. Some are, for example, are managed within our office, like CDEN, the California Environmental Data Exchange Network, and CWIX and SMARTS. Those are all huge data systems that are kind of not coordinated in the way that we really want. So the first major challenge and hurdle that we've been trying to overcome is, how do we make these systems better operate and make it easier for us to provide an output that allows for the data to be published in an open and transparent way. One way we do that is just to improve the data flow from start to finish. This is one example from our surface water ambient monitoring program, which is within our office and really is the main source of state collected monitoring data for the assessment of our ambient waters. And so we really start from the top of the water data life cycle. Why are we collecting the data? How are we collecting the data? Where are we storing it? And then how do we publish that data so that it's easily available for users, both internally and externally, to turn that data into information and ultimately make better decisions? One way we've done that is, and this is an output of the AB 1755 effort. And if you remember, the first kind of mandate was to create an open data platform. And one of those platforms is the California Open Data Portal, which is data.ca.gov, if you haven't seen it. And this is where the water boards is pushing our data sets in an open format. As you can see, if you were to go to that website and filter for California State Water Board and water as a topic, you would find 54 data sets, likely more than that now. And they have individual water programs where you can click on that, you can access the raw data and the documentation behind that data, and it's available for folks to download and then utilize to create their own sort of information, their own visualizations. They could also double check the work that we're doing. That's one of the key aspects, is that we don't pretend that we are the experts at data science, especially. So it's great to have this data available for some of those outside data scientists, think the Googles and the Silicon Valleys of the world, where they can actually take a look at the data and say, hey, wait, this isn't quite right. So, and we welcome that kind of dialogue. The next kind of step is like, how do we use the data ourselves? This is how we publish the data, how we create our own performance reporting. So how do we assess the job that we're doing? And then how do we really promote data-driven decision making? And so this is one example how we take the data that we are collecting internally and create our own performance reporting. This isn't really widely, yes, we can post that. One way that we measure ourselves, or the main way that we measure how we do our jobs effectively at the water board, is something called the performance report. And this has really came a long way. It used to be, you know, a hard copy document that arguably probably nobody read, and now it's kind of evolved over time to become a series of reporting cards that are all interactive by program. And I can drop a link into this, and a lot of these, there are links available in this presentation that we made available. But this really allows you to kind of take a look at what of our key performance indicators, how are we living up to the metrics that we set ourselves in the beginning of the year versus where we ended up at the end of the year, and ways that we're looking to improve that. And this is available to anybody and everyone, but it also allows us to kind of let the water board know how we're doing, what the barriers are, what the opportunities are for improvement, et cetera. And that's really a heavy task, especially when you think about the tuna diagram we had before. How do we collect the data to actually report on those across the many programs we house at the water boards? We've been really working hard to kind of develop that infrastructure, and at this point, the performance reports is a really well-oiled machine and working well. There's another example of a drilled down visualization of how we do our MPDS inspections. And you can see if the data is provided openly and in a usable format, you can really drill down and see, like, okay, the inspections have increased, obviously fell during the pandemic there, and now it's starting to go back up. But then you can also see, you know, where are we doing our inspections? What are the location? Are they skewed to do a certain area? How do they relate with complaints? And it really allows you to kind of really dig into the program more effectively if the data is published openly, and that makes us do our jobs better. It makes for a better government for everyone. So where are we going? Open Data 2.0, this is all stuff that, again, started back in 2016. We're almost 10 years into this. How do we continue to improve through, you know, more intentional data engagement around our really most important data sets? How are we really describing and curating our data? It's one thing to just make the data available, but it's also how do we describe the data so that it's understandable and usable to many audiences? And then also, how do we create like interrelational models between data sets so that future programs have a pathway to easily create their program effectively without having to go through the hoops of trying to retroactively change a program that's been established for many years. And I guess the bottom line is that, you know, open data is challenging. We used to do this manually. You have to take it, you know, spreadsheets by hand and check it with the lab data, to check it with the quality assurance program plan, and then actually manually input it into a data system. Right now, we're really trying to look how we can pull the data directly through APIs and pull it and input it into the data model by putting it through a series of checks and data transformations, while always providing the documentation for what we're doing to the data, which is like ultimately important, is documentation. We're also looking to expand how and who we're engaging with. We're really trying to get some of the locally collected data that we may not have very good access to, whether that be from volunteer monitoring groups, just from local entities that are collecting data that we're not aware of, and we want to really bring those in into our data flow so that we're bolstering our data, because in many cases the data that we have and the resources that we have to collect data is rather limited. So the more data we can pull in, the better we can inform on our decision making. So one thing that we're investing in is modernizing some of those legacy data systems. So again, think back to the tuna can system. One example is that is water rights, which probably had 3 or 4 or 5 of those data tuna cans. They're spending quite a bit of money to modernize that system to create just one centralized system that does the same thing that all 5 of those did, but created one centralized space to do that. The drinking water is also doing something similar with their urban water data reporting. They're also had some really good examples of success with the SAFER and needs assessment work and creating better flat files from their open data to create these visualizations that are more all-encompassing and don't make you have to look across several different spaces to try to answer one single question or various questions. And this is great. We have a lot of opportunities, but it's also a challenge when you're pulling a lot of different data from different places. It can be difficult to publish it openly because there's a lot of different, it's coming from different places and data needs to stay where it's being collected. So there's a little bit of a nuance there. With more data comes more problems, but also more opportunities. So it's just something that it's just a matter of fact when working with data. In relation to like some opportunities and collaboration, one of the main examples of that is the work that came out of the Open and Transparent Water Data Act, AB 1735. It really tasks us with coordinating with our sister agencies, which historically we haven't done a great job of, but this, tell us you must do this. So we've been doing this for the better part of 8 years or so. And it led to the development of this new entity called the California Water Data Consortium, which is a 501(c) entity that their main task is to provide an independent sort of third-party space for the public agencies to coordinate without running afoul of posturing or other political type processes that might get in the way when trying to have those interagency collaborative discussions. It's been a really powerful place for us. I've been sitting on the steering committee for that since its inception. And they're really working on some really cool projects. One of those is an urban water data based project that is being used to inform things like drought conservation, and it covers many types of urban water data and use cases, and it's the beginning of a larger effort, but it's really showing when several agencies coordinate and can make their data systems communicate, that you can really start to dive into making better measurements and modeling and make better overall decisions when it comes to climate change and making the best decisions for all of California. Here's an example. It's kind of hard to read, but you're seeing many different inputs on the left-hand side, where the data is coming from and how the data model is bringing it into a centralized place by developing data dictionaries, then a data dashboard, and then integrating it into hopefully a goal, which is a data tool that can be used to inform across these entities to make a combined decision that is complementary across several different agencies. Another example of what open data can lead to is the drinking water needs assessment, which is used to then prioritize funding and allocation of resources across California as it relates to drinking water. This was a really big effort to, again, take data from across several disparate data systems, make sense of it, clean it, document it, and then integrate it within. This is a visualization. So this is what an example of taking that data and turning it into information, easy for me to say, via dashboard, and then allowing others to create similar types of information, but also just basically drill down into this to say, okay, why is the water board spending the money where it is? And this really allows us to be transparent. Well, this is why we've taken a look at several different factors, whether that be population, that be demographic, socioeconomic data, as well as risk to aquifers and drought and areas like that, so that we can prioritize areas for our funding to make sure that when there are extreme events, that there is drinking water available. And that's where his presentation ends. I think we're going to take questions at the end, but here's Greg's email address, and this again will be available for any specific questions that he put together in his presentation, as well as down there in the yellow is a link to our office website, which has a lot of information on open data. We have several handbooks and other guidance that's available for anyone, not just water board employees. Take a deep breath. Okay, so part two. We'll talk a little bit about the Water Quality Monitoring Council, which is how I got to know Evelyn and how I found myself here with you all. And really, the Water Quality Monitoring Council is designed to increase efficiency and effectiveness of our water quality monitoring and communication through collaboration. So a little bit of background about the council itself. It was developed back in 2006 under California Senate Bill 1070 by Kehoe, and established new water code sections within 131.67 and 131.81, and basically required the two agencies, Cal EPA and the natural resources agencies, to work together. We were collecting data in our own agency silos and our own BDO silos or board division office silos, and then making decisions in a non-transparent way. And this was recognized primarily through our Clean Water Act 303D and 305B integrated report process, which assesses our water bodies and then determines if there's an impairment to our beneficial uses, then a TMDL or other regulatory action needs to be made. And a lot of our stakeholders were like, well, how's this happening? It was a bit of a black box. And so this legislation was aimed to remedy that, and is governed by an MOU signed by the two secretaries. And the MOU itself says to establish this council. And the council is made up by several seats, and each one is supposed to represent a major sector that is collecting water quality data. Here is our current membership. Since I've come on board, I've added a few seats, primarily the public health piece and the academic community, because I saw those as kind of important gaps in our council membership. But if you see here, if there are, I saw a lot of utilities here. You would probably be incorporated under the stormwater or the POTW section, as well as there's several NGOs that would be captured primarily under the public piece. That's the public has mainly been chaired by an NGO seat. So like I said, it's a variety of seats. We have 13 seats, and they're chaired by the Cal EPA and CNRA. The power in this council is that we're non-regulatory, so it really allows for more open coordination and discussion that just focused on the water quality monitoring program and data itself, without getting into the issue of regulatory versus regulated piece, which can be a little bit difficult at times. We do our primary work. The council is really a higher level advisory group that really tasks several work groups. We have 13 work groups, and they are theme specific. So there's inland beaches, which is and coastal beaches, which is focused on bacteria impairments. We have a safe to eat work group, which was used to be called the bioaccumulation oversight group, which is focused on catching and reporting on fish tissue monitoring for consumption. We have harmful algal blooms, and they basically cover various types of water types that are listed here. Here's a list of the active monitoring work groups that we have. Some of the newer ones is molecular methods, which is focused on eDNA, as well as trash monitoring work group, which is focused on trash, but also microplastics. Those were identified as sort of emerging issues within the water quality space when I came on board. So those are newer work groups that are active and working on how do we coordinate across these types of monitoring early on in the process before groups and programs get set in their ways on how they're collecting the data. We want to integrate how the methods that we're using, how we're reporting, and then ultimately how we are communicating the data that we're collecting. We also have a couple other work groups that are more collaborative in nature that really focused on webinars, and also looking at how do we incorporate equity into our monitoring programs, and they kind of serve the other work groups. The council is one of the named entities within AB 1755 as a partner agency, and I represent the council on that partner agency team. And it really allowed us to, as a council, to eliminate redundancies and legislative overlap. There's a lot of similarities in the two legislative efforts, and maybe the kind of biggest challenge for the council has been the lack of dedicated resources. It came at 2006, and then 2008 it was created, and there was a big economic downturn in California at the time. So when it came down to ask for resources, there wasn't really any available. So we've been working primarily on a voluntary basis, or looking for ways to leverage existing funding or opportunities there to kind of do the work that we've done. And kind of incredible what we've done with so little. But this new legislation allowed us to kind of consolidate our tasks and focus on specific aspects. So there's another look at the data lifecycle, and it kind of goes through the whole collection process. Like, how do you develop your use cases? What are you planning, collecting, quality assuring, and then publishing your data all the way to turning it into information. And this really shows the areas that the Open and Transparent Water Data Act focuses on, which is the green areas, as well as promoting the purple. And this is really what develops the council. And so the council is really focusing on turning data information, thinking about how you plan and collect data, and then ultimately how the information can be best used to support decision making. And they overlap rather well. When you think about the data lifecycle for AB 1755, it's more about the publishing side. We're kind of on the upper side. So if you look at the green areas, that they blend well together and support each other. Some good examples of what the open collaboration and open data efforts have done within the Water Quality Monitoring Council is within our California Harmful Algal Bloom and Cyanobacteria Network, or CCHAB network. Through this effort, we took voluntary reported data of incidents of harmful algal blooms. We developed a form as well as a data system to collect reported blooms, and then took that, and we now have this reporting map, which is verified results of not only visual blooms, but also the lab results that verify that there was microassistance found there. And that leads to posting requirements by the local health authorities to make sure that folks aren't recreating in that water, because harmful algal blooms, if you're not aware, are really dangerous to pets that are recreating in the water, but also can make humans sick, especially smaller children, if they happen to get the algae or the toxins within on their skin or even ingested. So it's a really big effort. This was going on for about a decade and finally has actually led to the development of an actual freshwater harmful algal bloom monitoring program within the surface water ambient monitoring program. But because we have this data, this is one of the most visited maps within the water board's infrastructure, especially during this time of year when blooms are more present and people are out recreating. People come here and check the water that they're going to go recreate to see if there's any known blooms in this in the water that they're about to visit, and also provides an opportunity if they do see something, they can report it. Another great example is our Safe to Swim map. This is built off of our coastal monitoring and inland monitoring work groups, where we're collecting data on fecal indicator bacteria. So think Enterococcus and E. coli data, depending on the water body. And this reports out based on color and size of the dot, whether there are known impairments. And this one even has an added layer where if you click on a dot, it shows you a table like this, where it takes into account, it shows you the actual water quality standard in a red line and shows you where the recent samples have gone above or below that, both as a single sample maximum and a geometric mean. And this really supports how we do our 303D assessment as well. So really cool map to check out if you're going to the beach. So like kind of why we are here in general and how you can help is really just advocating for the council and its work groups as a resource. If you guys are, if you all are interested in working on any of the topics that I kind of highlighted, I'd encourage you to reach out to myself and with staff and resources you'd like to participate on, or if there's even new emerging issues that you saw that weren't maybe encompassed within the existing work groups, then we'd love to kind of meet and talk about that. A lot of times the council, because it's a little bit older and because it didn't get resources, it flies a little bit under the radar. So anytime we have an opportunity to kind of publicize the work that we're doing and trying to do, we take it. And with that, no questions, but here's some more resources. And there's a YouTube channel where we record many of our meetings, especially recently, and across the work groups too. So there's a ton of information on our YouTube channel, and you can subscribe for any of the emails that I send out. And with that, I'll go ahead and conclude until questions after, I assume. And instead, I will introduce Evelyn Wendell, who is our Safe Drinking Water Work Group chair and also the founder and executive director of WeTap, and have her speak a little bit about WeTap and what she's been working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Nick. That was amazing. And it's humbling, just the extent of the information that you guys are in charge of. It's just, it's incredible. So my name is Evelyn Wendell, and I founded WeTap.org probably around 15 years ago, which I can't believe. I'm a mom, and when I was taking my kids to parks and, you know, exploring the city, public fountains were just kind of broken or just hard to find. And so I took it upon myself, little did I know what I was getting myself into, but to kind of try to help this systematically. And of course, all the vending machines were kind of, you know, ubiquitous, even though public fountains weren't. But I quickly realized that drinking water also needed some, you know, TLC as far as public perception goes. So WeTap has really morphed into a organization that is supports public utilities and public health and education and and government, because I don't think we can ignore and underscore how like vital drinking water is in our communities and how excellent we have it here in California. We're so lucky. So of course, with the luck, there's challenges and, lack of trust and lack of respect in general, and the challenges of sharing accurate and relevant information and making sure it actually is being received. So I know that all of you here have thought about this over, the course of your careers, and it's a conversation that I think we just need to keep having. And of course, we are all part of the solution, which really cannot be underscored at all. So, because what do you guys all focus on? I mean, you focus on reliability and safety and dependability, and it's everything. So thank you all for what you do, for all of us. So why is public water not trusted? Again, I know we've all thought about this for a long time. And there's obvious, we know that United States is one of the safest public water supplies in the world, luckily. And yet there's, it's such a complicated world and the questions are always lingering. And so doubt just continues to grow. And we're fed, and information's always changing, but we're fed information that, is sometimes contradictory, and some of it really makes no sense. So what really does matter? Obviously we need to, share the right information, and we have to share it aggressively and coordinated and very carefully. We do have safe drinking water, and of course, we have to keep moving the needle and making it better all the time. There's emerging contaminants that we have to deal with, and premise plumbing is a conversation that people do not like to have, but we do have to have these conversations so that we can come up with, the best solutions at any given time, and how to guide people into behavior change that actually makes their water safer, like not flushing, pharmaceuticals down the toilet, or I mean, I wash my few pots and pans in the morning from the kitchen sink, and I drink from the kitchen sink all day because I live in an apartment that's, 60 years old. So that is a solution that we have to keep thinking about. And of course, the equity and the economic, justice issues, particularly in neighborhoods that have been, underserved over the years. There's a legacy of, of, not supporting communities, and we have to just keep moving forward. But with all that, we also have to recognize how excellent we have it, and how data is actually making us safer. And we have to just, prioritize what, where we want to go, which is making our world better and safer always. Let's see. So how do we earn more respect? I mean, I know that all of you, with the utilities that you work with and the NGOs you work with, that we are, you are trying. We're all trying. It's not like we haven't thought about this and that we're not doing our best, but we should and can do a better job at educating our public. But we're up against kind of a tough industry. I mean, it's really hard to imagine that the bottled water industry in the last, 40 years approximately has turned into a $50 billion a year industry. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the predictions are that it's going to just keep going up, which it's unsustainable, as you know. And we're so, the irony is that we're so lucky to have safe and dependable drinking water 24/7 mostly. And so we have to just do a better job. But how do we, find the balance? We have to be transparent and honest, and also welcome people into the conversation without, no shame. We're always going to have challenges. Nothing is perfect, but these conversations have to happen for people to understand context, for people to kind of understand, like, why are we conserving when, a month ago there was a deluge of rain? So these are conversations that we have to welcome everyone into. Community engagement is one of the most important challenges we have, and we have to just continue to climb that mountain. So I just want to bring up the SAFER program. I'm sure you guys are aware of, this amazing, historic, and necessary, funding, the SAFER program of $130 million a year, to help water, small water systems who don't have the, capacity to deliver safe drinking water throughout communities. But the issue that I believe is that people hear these issues, what Kamala Harris was campaigning on was that 1 million Californians don't have safe drinking water. I think that number is actually less than 1 million, but I think people think that that might apply to them. And so it's just it's more cloud and, clouding the water. And we need to fresh, clear, crystal clean perception of our drinking water. And of course, that's not easy, but I just wanted to bring this up. So how do we promote the right information? The Safe to Drink website, which is under the Monitoring Council. If you Google, is my water safe to drink in California? This is the website, the first website that you find, or one of the top hits that you find. So we have a responsibility for this website to be as vital and honest, transparent, and interesting, inspiring as it can possibly be. So I'm inviting all of you to join our work group, and I hope that we can, continue to make improvements on this website and prioritize the information that you want to highlight in your communities, the information that you might be having challenges, reaching your communities with. I believe this website can help all of us. It's listed on the State Water Board's website on the same page as the chairmans of the water board. So you can find it in many locations. And I just think the opportunity for this website to be, the source of, setting sort of a structure, the scaffolding of what public drinking water is in California. I mean, finding the right information is challenging enough, but maybe this can help ease it, for the younger generation, for immigrants, for people who are visiting. And of course, water quality reports. I mean, I find them to be really good reading. And I know that, we're of course required to send them out into the communities. But I was in a meeting a few weeks ago with the EPA and water equity and finance. And, how do we reach renters? They're asking for our support to try to find these solutions. I know that LADWP is trying to find solutions, and I'm assuming all of you want to reach all your customers, even though people, might not have this information, or they don't even know it exists. So these are challenges that we just have to kind of keep trying to address and trying to make improvements, and we are. So Tap Water Day, started Tap Water Day 9 years ago in Los Angeles. I'm very proud of this photo. This was about 4 or 5 years ago in front of the LADWP building. You can see the head of facilities for LA Unified is there, Marty Adams and city council members and people from the mayor's office and the lovely folks at LADWP. Tap Water Day is the first Thursday of May. We're keeping it anchored in a school day so we can hopefully, initiate and develop and inspire relevant and clear information that kids can grab onto. And a lot of kids graduate high school and they don't know anything about the EPA. They don't know about the Safe Drinking Water Act. They don't really know what goes into delivering water in their schools and in their communities. And I think these are lessons that we need to keep a tight hold on throughout our lives. I mean, we can't ignore how important it is that water utilities deliver safe and dependable and reliable drinking water 24/7. And of course, we're going to have challenges sometimes, and those challenges need to be shared and in timely fashion. But we can't expect the public to be able to hear us unless we're talking to them all the time and welcoming them into the conversation and addressing their concerns and listening to what they prioritize and not, so it's complex, but I'm hoping Tap Water Day is one of the solutions to this. This was Tap Water Day 2024. 18 of the 26 MWD agencies shared Tap Water Day information all, on the day. And I believe conservatively, we probably reached 50,000 or more people on that day, just by a simple social media campaign. So imagine what we can do with more coordination, with more, planning, with more parties. Let's have a party. Let's have many parties. I want to highlight one of the superstars of this day, and that was EMWD. If any of you from EMWD are on this meeting today, thank you. And I want to thank all of the utilities who participated. Really, thank you. So EMWD, the rock stars of that day, were taking their truck and going to 6 different locations promoting their drinking water. I mean, I just, how fantastic is that? When I saw that was going on, I was like, I was dancing. So thank you for that. And WeTap developed the WeTap Drinking Fountain Finder app. We did this over a dozen years ago. It started at UCLA with site-specific data about drinking fountains and their locations with an eye on maintenance and a voice to connect with the public for utilities and cities. So we are starting to do customize, applications for this app. We'd like to, be able to put water quality reports for certain boundaries. So if a kid is riding his bike and wants to know where the local fountain is, he can connect to water quality reports and whatever other information you might prioritize at that particular time. And of course, the Olympics are coming. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. People are watching us. People will continue to watch us. How do we want to be perceived? So this is a tool that hopefully will make us a little cooler, a little more fun, and a little more engaging. And this last slide, I wanted to highlight that WeTap is in the sustainability plan for the city of LA under the water section. Garcetti gave us 200 new fountains, which are installed throughout the city. LADWP started the Hydration Station Initiative program in order to install these units. It's still a priority of LADWP's. And I'm personally hoping that we can hit the mark of 2028 for the 2028 Olympics. I think Los Angeles has about 1,600 fountains right now in public locations. And so we're pretty close, and onwards. We just have to keep making progress and believing that anything is possible. So thank you for your time and allowing me to speak to you today.
Thank you, Evelyn. It's great to have a nonprofit, and especially one that's been working as long as hard as you have on actually promoting our tap water. It is also hard to believe that there are, and the number is actually over 1 million people without access to clean, safe drinking water and sanitation in the state of California in almost third world conditions. Most of those people aren't just in agricultural areas, but also in urban areas. So our first question is going to move to that. But first, I want to make sure I thanked Nick for doing 2 presentations. I don't think we've had anyone ever have to fill in like that. And I learned a lot. We're all now, those of us here are ambassadors of these programs because we've got this information and we have to share this amazing resource that's available. So the question and answers, the process is you put a question in the Q&A, not the chat. And then you can, again, I said this earlier, but you can upgrade it. We don't have a lot of questions because this has really been an informational session. It's not the dialogue or a lot of the controversy that's going on in the water world right now. So it's good to fill in with lots of information. But if you do have questions, we've also, the presentations themselves will be posted on our website, which is listed in the chat, and access to the presenters as well. So I just saw everything slide by, but I did see one question that was there earlier, and I would be amiss not to mention the cities of Southeast LA and their long-term fight with contaminants that are there. I've been working on this issue for a long, long time, and a little anecdotal story when we were working in Maywood, which has 3 private water mutuals left over from the time when they're agriculture. So only landlords have a vote, or property owners have a vote on those agencies. Most of the city is 1 square mile, 3 different agencies, and most of it is renters. So they were having problem with brown water coming through their pipes. It wasn't just the magnesium, which can be an issue, as well as a contaminant, but a legacy from Vernon, the industrial city next door, coming into the aquifer. So they have tried to clean up some of the contaminants on some of the wells, but at the same time, I was shocked and kind of committed to this issue when one of the general managers, no longer there, said, "So what, it's just brown water for brown people." So that shows the extent of challenges we have left out there in the state. Certainly not with our urban agencies who bring you clean drinking water, and you can rely on it, and you can put it in your containers, and you can find filling stations, which I see now more and more often in all kinds of public places, including parks and YMCA and other places. So thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Nick. Does anyone want to respond to that question? Now I see a few others coming in as well. Okay, maybe I asked and answered it as well. So the next question is from Christopher. How were the water fountain drinking locations compiled, and how complicated is it to incorporate this data into mobile app for Evelyn?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. And it's also in the Q&A. You can read it. It's how were the water fountain drinking locations compiled, and how complicated was it to incorporate this into a mobile app, meaning your WeTap app?
Well, LADWP coordinated the installation of the hydration stations, and took into account, the neighborhoods throughout the city. The thing about the hydration station initiative, the way they structured it, is that they request a sponsor to ask for a fountain, and then they get reimbursed. So in order for this initiative, which is still, again, high priority for LADWP, for communities to really step up and say, we need fountains here, we need fountains there, we need fountains here. So it really is a public engagement project. And the WeTap app is a user-friendly app. So the public actually adds the units to the fountains. But again, the customization of the app will incorporate the data from the utilities as well as the public, and be like a opportunity for the public to communicate with the utilities. Even though there are hotlines that utilities have, I don't think we can underemphasize how important it is for utilities to connect with their customers. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Evelyn. Charmaine Evelyn from the Sierra Club has a couple questions. One is, how can the State Water Board partner with CBOs and NGOs to battle the messaging from the bottled water industry? Nick, do you want to take that? And maybe Evelyn also?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can partner with our drinking water partners and the water districts to better communicate just the real risks behind bottled water. And that can be done through the website, like the Safe Drinking Water Work Group website, where we really aim to try to provide a centralized location for providing information to consumers that, hey, there are better options besides going to Costco and buying loads and loads of bottled water, where you may or may not know how long it's been sitting in that water bottle and how it's been leaching, and just kind of be transparent about some of the resources about the water quality in those water bottles and the unknowns behind it. I don't think the water board itself is going to come out and necessarily say don't drink bottled water per se, but that I think is the power behind the council and its work groups, is it's kind of skirts the lines between those and allows for a kind of a more transparent public communication in that way. And I also think that maybe if there were some discussions where there was a water quality issue, where there was, say, water was not available for folks, and instead of providing drinking water, bottled water by the community-based organizations, they talk about like hauled water and think about alternatives to provide the communities that are in need of water.
Great, thank you. And I think it sounds like Charming's also offering that perhaps nonprofits and community-based organizations can help with that messaging and getting out there too, because of their large membership and their relationships with their members, as well as doing public outreach on a regular basis, sometimes with water agencies as well.
But we do
Yeah.
have
All
a
right. Yeah,
Can I
go ahead, Evelyn.
add something. We do have a problem because a lot of times community-based organizations will provide water to their communities through bottled waters. Like the community, I spoke to thousands of people over the years, and a lot of people have said to me, why are you one of the first people who've told me that our water is safe to drink? And they depend on bottled water. I mean, it's become generational. So we have to do a better job at connecting with the public and listening to the public. We have to develop more community partnership opportunities, and the utilities, I'm hoping, will share this with their community outreach partners, so that when they're doing outreach, that they're not providing bottled water for parties, for events. I know it's challenging, but we can put in, big containers and paper cups, or encourage people to bring canteens. So there's not going to ever be one solution to this. It's such a huge problem, but I think kids are sick of bottled water, and also the economic issue with bottled water. I mean, it's a family of 5 should not be spending $5,000 a year on bottled water when they don't have to. It's very sad. And of course, we all know about the New England Journal of Medicine article that just came out recently that correlates microplastics and nanoplastics with cardiovascular health. So it's becoming a health crisis.
Thank you. I think those are all good points. I would say even my community garden here up in Mar Vista with 500 plots, our community work days now no longer provides bottled water, and we have clean filtered water for everybody.
Bravo.
So it takes those kind of simple changes over time for people to realize that the convenience might be killing us. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I saw another one I guess we're getting upvoted, but I saw another one actually from Charming wanting to know about one of her favorite issues of dewatering in construction. And how do you does anyone account for that? And dewatering just means places where there's a high water table and water may be flowing out of the ground. And when people go, especially digging in for foundations or parking structures, they're actually pumping that water out. There are also natural springs where water is flowing. And all water has value. So I was wondering if either of you could answer that.
I know that I think that's more of a Department of Transportation, like Caltrans issue, but I also think that we do have dewatering requirements within our permits, our general stormwater construction permits. I put a couple links in there, and I'm not sure that if that information is collected or how it's collected. I'd have to kind of maybe circle the wagons with Greg. I put a couple of links in there under the answered section of some tools, as well as some of the dewatering requirements that we do require. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. That's good resources. And I'm sure Charmin will be getting back to you.
Great.
All right. The next one is again an anonymous. Evelyn, can you say again, what is the goal for the number of drinking water fountains, hydration stations, and how many have been installed since this goal was established?
Well, Garcetti gave us 200 new public drinking fountains. And also it took us, when Tom LeBonge was still a council member, he requested from the Rec and Parks to do an inventory of the fountains in LA City. It took years. It took 3, 4, 5 years for LA City Rec and Parks to provide that. I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And they had a number of about, I think, 1,100 or 1,200 public fountains in LA parks, which is a pretty good number. If they're maintained, it's pretty nice. So I think we're roughly up to about the 1,500 fountains in the city. So I'm hoping we can hit 2028 for 2028, because again, when the world is watching us, wouldn't that be cool to be able to promote that we've prioritized public fountains over the last 10 years? And, you know, this is how you can find them. If you come to LA, bring your canteens. LA water is safe, dependable, reliable. I mean, so let's do it. Let's make it happen.
All right, great. Thank you. Nick, again, from an anonymous questionnaire. Amongst that data, is there anything that really tracks progress towards TMDL, total daily load compliance per region, or is this where region 10 started in the year? I guess this is kind of an inside question. With respect to each contaminant regulated, is this where region 10 is today?
So yeah, that's the best place to find that information is going to be within the performance report, which I can put a link in as an answer to that, where we actually work with the regions to have them provide one of the metrics is TMDL compliance, or I mean, how many TMDLs were written or how many TMDLs have actually come to completion and a water body gets delisted. Those are all captured within the progress report and can be kind of looked at by year on a year-by-year basis. And I'll put a link into that. That's the best kind of one-stop shop for looking at all the regions in one place.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for putting that information in the chat. We will keep that information as well so we can post it. Chris asks, when will single-use bottles be banned statewide? I don't know if we know the answer to that, but if anyone would like to respond.
Well, there's a big lobby that's going to prevent that from happening. I think we've been trying for decades, right, to hold the bottled water industry accountable. I mean, bottle tops, that's another thing. Why are they not connected? I mean, I'm old enough to talk about the flip cans and how we regulated those in the 70s. Not we, but, the collective we. And so that's another issue. Why is that? So I wish I could give you an answer. I mean, it's just so disheartening and it's so sad, but we have to keep trying, right? To have the bottled water industry responsible for the waste that they're creating in our communities. It's probably the biggest, I don't know, scam that humanity's ever seen is the bottled water industry. Because most of the water that we're getting out of bottled water is just the same water that we get out of our taps. So I'm sorry to be so bleak, but sad.
Sounds like a Bill Walton, an honorary Bill Walton quote. I like it. All right. Okay, the next one is, isn't it irresponsible to tell everyone that their water is safe to drink when there might be legit premise plumbing contaminants and secondary contaminants as well? So just so people, if they don't know the term premise plumbing, that's the water that is that the homeowner is responsible for, the landlord, from the meter into your and throughout your house.
I did discuss that, and I'm not saying that, you know, everything is perfect, but the conversation has to happen among all of us. The public has to understand that maybe there is a break in a line, and maybe we have to boil our water for 24 hours, and then the next day the water is fine, instead of running to bottle water as a, you know, forever. That we just have to understand how systems work. And so I'm not saying that everything is perfect. I'm just saying we have to have this conversation. But from the research that I've done and from the brilliant people I've talked to, mostly our water is safe to drink. And yes, there are communities that sadly have had, you know, really unfair issues, but we have to talk about those too, and we have to make the improvements that we can. So nothing improves if we're not talking about it collectively and listening.
All
So
right, thank
I
you.
hope I answered that question or
Yeah,
addressed it.
thank you. Diane Wallace asked for Nick, are you collecting and sharing data about water conservation communities that are decreasing their use of water? I think I heard mention of that as well.
Yes, yeah. So that's one of the big projects we're working with the Water Data Consortium on, like urban water use and budgeting, and kind of collectively combining water that we collect at the water board, but also what the Department of Water Resources is collecting and when they're coming with their water budgets. And so that's an ongoing project that we're working with the consortium on, and I can drop some information on that as well. That's something that's in the works. It's something that's a little bit has been a struggle, just collecting the information from several disparate locations and people that are collecting the data in various ways. But that's definitely a desire, especially in the urban areas.
Okay, great. And then we have a couple that are actually statements and informational. One from Chris again, saying we've instituted an upcoming ban on single-use plastic water bottles in the town of Mammoth Lake, modeled based on abandoned Truckee, the Tahoe area.
Bravo.
And then Craig Caldwelder from Surfrider said, statement not question, we're working on local waste reduction ordinances in many cities to prohibit the use and distribution of all beverages, not just water, and including, you know, soft drinks, which have use a large volume of water as well, in single-use plastic bottles. All right, then the last one I see now is from Charming Evelyn saying, yes, the data collected by regional boards and the NPDES permits are issued by the boards, but some of these permits are infinite. Nick, did you want to respond to that?
Well, they're not supposed to be infinite. I mean, they are supposed to get. Oh, what's that? Sorry. They're. You know, they come and are readopted. I mean, they aren't readopted as on a schedule they're supposed to be. So a lot of times they get delayed and are held in perpetuity until they are revisited. I think the last construction permit was done in 2022, so not that long ago, and there are several dewatering requirements within that I included. So I hear your point that yeah, it takes probably too long for them to doing it, which I think is supposed to be every 5 years, 5 to 10 years. But that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you for that. And can you just tell us for those that aren't, I mean, I imagine everybody knows, but we have to do an acronym control on the NPDES.
Sure, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System.
Thank you. I'm getting tongue-tied in this hot weather. I appreciate that.
That's okay. Sometimes you'll hear the feds call it NPDES and we call it NPDES. So if you hear NPDES, it's the same thing.
Okay, I didn't know that. Now I've know another one. Thank you very much. All right. With that, there are no open questions. I want to thank especially our speakers today for presenting, Nick for taking over for Greg. We hope he gets better soon. For all of you to hanging in there, but all of this information will be online. Make the links, get the information out there. It is so important that we do this. I learned a lot today, and I've been doing this for way too long. So with that, we will go to our next, would be our upcoming meetings, which our next one is July 24th. We'd like to hear, if you have any compliments, send them to Kathy Caldwell. If you have any complaints, you can send them to me. And we'll leave the chat feature open if you want to send more questions. If the presenters will have time, they can answer them now, if maybe not later, but we really appreciate this whole process. There's probably nothing more important in a time of opinions rather than facts to talk about drinking water and drinking water quality as we move forward. Thank you all very much.